I'll just tell you just a little bit about him before the story begins. He was a great hero from the ancient times in Ireland. And the Fianna were his band of warriors, specially trained fighting men and great heroes. And usually what they did was to protect Ireland. A small island was always being invaded from the Iordot, I think. So Finn would drive off the invaders with his Fianna. So that's one Irish word you might hear. The other word that's Irish in the story is the word dún, and dún means a fort. And I think that's all I need to tell you. The Fianna, when they weren't fighting, might spend their days hunting, and it was the end of one of those days that this story begins. So one day, Finn and his men were riding back to their dún on the hill of Allen, when a beautiful fawn started up suddenly out of the heather in front of them. Well, the whole party gave chase for a while, but because it was the end of the day, and men and dogs were tired, they soon fell back, all except Finn and his two dogs, Bran and Sciulán. But then Finn noticed a strange thing, that no matter how the fawn doubled and twisted in her flight, she seemed to be drawing steadily nearer to the hill of Allen itself, almost as if she were trying to reach the place, like one looking for sanctuary. Yet what sanctuary could a hunted fawn find in the dún of the hunter? Once she glanced over her shoulder to see who was close behind her, and then ran on again, with Bran and Sciulán following close. Well, for a few moments the three were lost to sight, and then Finn came upon the strangest sight that ever he had seen. For there, in a little hollow, surrounded by harebells, lay the fawn, panting after her long run. And the two dogs, Bran and Sciulán, were standing over her, licking her face and her trembling limbs, as if to tell them she was safe and had nothing to fear. And while Finn stood staring, and the fawn looking up at him with her soft, dark eyes, he heard the sound of the hunting horns and the hounds as they came close, and the fawn sprang to her feet trembling. But instantly, Bran and Sciulán stood, one on either side of her, and Finn rode back and told his men to call off the hunt. And so they all rode across the level country, back to the hill of Allen, and sure enough, the fawn ran ahead of them, and she playing with Bran and Sciulán along the way. And when they reached the fort, in she went through the gate. And that night at supper, she lay at Finn's feet under the table, with the two dogs, Bran and Sciulán, one on either side. In the midst of that night, Finn woke with a start. His sleeping chamber was flooded with moonlight that came through the open door, and standing in the heart of the moonlight, like the gold in the heart of a white flower, was the most beautiful maiden that ever his eyes had seen. She was dressed in a gown of soft saffron wool, clasped at the shoulder with yellow gold. Her neck and her bare, slim arms were white, but her hair was so warmly golden that even the moonlight couldn't wash the gold out of it. Only her eyes were soft and dark, as the eyes of the fawn had been. "Who are you?" said Finn. "And what is it you do here, for you are no woman of Allen that I have ever seen." "My name is Saba," she said. "I am that fawn you hunted today. 3 of your immortal years ago, the druid of my fairy people forced his love on me and wanted to have me for his wife. But because I would have nothing to do with him, he changed me into the shape that you saw today. But a servant of his who took pity on me told me that if only once I could gain your fort on the hill of Allen, I would be safe from him. And for a long time I have tried to get here, but I was always drawn away by your hounds and dogs, until today I had the chance to be hunted by only your dogs, Bran and Sciulán, who have fairy enchantment in them also, and would know me for what I am." So Finn spoke to the maiden gently, and told her to stay in Alan as long as you like. You will have my protection, and the protection of the Fianna, he said, and the druid will have no power over you. So Saba stayed in Alan, and Finn fell in love with her and made her his wife. And their happiness was like the happiness of the immortals in the land of youth. Finn loved Saba as he had not loved a woman before, and would never love one again. He loved her as he had never loved anything before. When he saw her, he didn't see the world. And when he saw the world without her, it was as though he saw nothing. He tended no more to the Fianna. He ceased to hunt. He didn't listen to the songs of his poets or the tales of his storytellers. For all of these were in his wife. And something that was beyond these was in her also. She is this world and the next, said Finn. She is completion. But one day, news came to Finn that sea robbers had landed on the bay where Dublin stands today and were robbing and pillaging all before them. So we gathered together the 7 battalions of the Fianna, and they got ready to fight off the Northmen. But before he went, he took a tender farewell of Saba. I go from thee, Saba, not for the hunt or the sport, but to fight the enemies of Erin and drive them off our land. Guard thyself well while I am gone. And in a short time we'll be together again. But I charge you, stay within the ramparts of this fort, and have no conversation with anyone not in our house. Well, for 7 days, Finn and the Fianna fought the Northmen, killing many and driving off the rest. And at the end of that time, he turned south and rode back home to the hill of Allen. And all the way on his journey back, he thought only of Saba, and of the great welcome she would have for him, and of their joy of being together again. And as he got closer and closer to the dune, he strained his eyes to look for his wife, who surely would be standing up at a high tower or window waiting for him. But Saba was not at any of the windows. And when he got close and could see his servants, he saw that their faces were filled with trouble and anxiety. And suddenly a cold hand clutched at Finn's heart. Where is the fair lady of Allen, that she comes not to greet me? He asked. Oh, Finn, they answered. Not long after you were gone, a man with your very look and shape came up the hill with 2 dogs who looked just like Bran and Fionn. And Saba, who was always waiting and watching for your return, saw him and ran down to the gates. And heeding not our warning to stay within, she ran out the gate and went down to meet him. And when she got close to him, she gave a loud cry and turned to come back. But he drew out a hazel wand and turned her into a dappled fawn. Still she tried to get back, but his 2 dogs wouldn't let her. Well, we ran out to see if we could help her, but when we got there was nothing to be seen. Neither Saba, nor fawn, nor dogs, nor enchanter. Not so much as their bare shadows on the hillside. And suddenly the air was filled with cries and shouts, the gallop of horses, the barking of dogs. Some of us thought it came from this way and some from that, until it all died away into the wind. We have searched the country over, but there is no sign to find of her. Then Finn covered his face with his hands that no man might see them, and went into his chamber, shutting the door. For 2 days he stayed inside, and no one dared come and talk to him. And on the 3rd day, he went back out and took up his duties as leader of the Fianna once more. But it was 7 years before he went hunting again. And all that time, when he was not fighting off the Northmen, he went looking for Saba. From north to south, from east to west, he looked for her, taking no dogs with him except ran and Fionn. From coast to coast of Erin he sought her, up every mountain, down every glen, through the depths of every forest and across the windy heights of every moor. But nowhere could he find any trace of her. So when the 7 years were up, he gave up looking for her and went hunting again. Now one day, he and his men were hunting near Ben Bulbin in Sligo, when all of a sudden he heard the dog's barks turn into a kind of yelping and snarling like a dog fight. And he went up to see them and see what was going on. There he saw his 2 dogs, Ben and Fionn, standing on either side of a naked boy. Memories smote Finn under the heart, for he remembered another time when his dogs had done this very thing. He asked the boy his name, but the child couldn't speak, although he didn't seem to be a bit afraid of the dogs. So Finn held out his hand, that the boy might see he had no menace, and the boy put his hand in Finn's. Finn brought him back to his doom. And all the way back, he kept looking at him, as though some great question was in his heart. And the boy was the answer. Well, at first, he was like a wild thing. He wasn't used to living with people at all. And it took him a while to learn the power of human speech. But soon, he had enough speech to tell the story. It was a story Finn was long anxious to hear. And the story the boy told was that he had known neither father nor mother, just a fawn who had always looked after him. The only man he ever saw was an angry-looking man who would come and talk to the fawn in the valley where they lived. Often he was angry, but no matter whether he was angry or gentle, the fawn always drew away from him in fear. Until one day, the man came and spent half a day with the fawn, at first gentle and soft, but then growing angry, until at last he took his hazel wand again, waved it over the fawn, and she had to follow him out of the valley, leaving the boy behind. He fell to the ground in grief. He was there when Finn and his men found him. So Finn knew he would never find Saba again. But he knew also that she had left him a son. And he called the boy Oisin, which means little deer. And Oisin grew up to become one of the greatest champions of the field. But always, there was a strangeness about him because he was of the fairy kind on his mother's side. A great warrior though he became, he was even more famous by the wonderful songs that he made and the stories he told. For he could sing the bird down from the arbutus tree, by the morning star down from the sunrise. But the story of Saba and the druid, he could not give an end to. No one knows the end of that story.